Hey, welcome to Texas Football Talk. I'm your host, 𝗟𝗓𝗏𝗘, once again, joined by my brother Clint. In this episode, another 2022 position preview, talking about the linebackers. How you doing, brother?
Hey, pretty good, man. We're getting close. We're getting really close. I think we got linebackers, and in the secondary will be the last one. Actually, not the last one. You got secondary, and then at some point we'll put out one for the quarterbacks. It may be before he decides on who the quarterback is, or after the fact. But we got two more left after this one. And then it's getting closer to September 3rd here. Just want to, again, tell people if they have not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. We're pushing for 4,000 for the beginning of the season. Without further ado, man, let's talk linebackers. We just finished edge. Let's talk linebackers. I know you're really, really excited about this group. Want to hear your thoughts, man.
I'm really, really excited about the change in philosophy, or not necessarily change in philosophy, but them talking about moving Demarvion Overshown around to highlight his skill set. And what that tells me is they have trust in who they could slide back in that middle linebacker and weak side linebacker if he's, playing an edge position, right? If they're pulling who may it be Gofu off the field in passing situations and letting Demarvion get after the quarterback, then they must trust the combination of Jaylan Ford, Tucker Dorsey, Benda, and Brockermeyer, who's been in the program for a while. But we talked about edges yesterday and talked about the inexperience of that group. Prior to that, we talked about the experience of the defensive linemen. Again, all these guys are seniors or juniors. You're talking about Demarvion Overshown's a senior, Jaylan Ford's a junior, Luke Brockmeyer's a senior, Diamonte Tucker Dorsey's a senior, David Benda Jr. and Devin Rich is a senior. Jet Bush coming back from the defensive line to the linebacker room is a senior. And then just two freshmen, Derek Brown and Travell Johnson, who are a little undersized right now at 206 pounds and I think 186 pounds. So not sure how much they're really going to help the linebacker room this year, but probably going to be more special teams guys. But I'm excited about the coaching staff's willingness to move Demarvion Overshown around, because what that tells me is they feel like they have the linebackers to play the weak and the mic whenever they move Demarvion around to the line of scrimmage. So excited about this group.
Yeah. Before we get into kind of some numbers, because I want to run down who we've lost either to the transfer portal or to graduation, and then who we picked up, and kind of talk a little bit about some numbers here from Pro Football Focus. But you talk about versatility. You're talking about wanting to change the scheme, wanting to move Demarvion Overshown around. But then you think about, what Gary Patterson, there as the special assistant to the coach, his thoughts and what he brings to that, but also Pete Kwiatkowski going up to Dallas or Dan Quinn coming to Austin, however it worked out, or via Zoom, having those conversations with Dan Quinn about his scheme and how he used Michael Parsons last year with the Dallas Cowboys. And I think, like I said before, the defense couldn't get any worse than what it was last year, both from a pressure standpoint, from a tackling standpoint, from a yards per average rush. Couldn't got any worse than what it was before. So you got to kind of go back and look at the scheme, and you got to go out and get other people's ideas, and I think that's what Gary Patterson brings to you. It says, okay, this is how they exploited your defense last year over and over and over again. And it's crazy because, again, I talk about this. We're like a tale of two halves. In most games, we're like a tale of two halves, where your defense played really, really well in spurts, got the turnovers you needed, got the ball back over to the offense to play complementary football. And then all of a sudden you got exploited in the second half. And I think that's what Gary Patterson's going to allow you to do, is say, okay, this is how they exploited you. These are the adjustments they made based off the adjustments you were making going into the game. Because I don't think Texas wasn't prepared to go into the football games, and it showed in the first halves. It's like, what happened to the adjustments in the second halves? And I think the linebackers played a big role in this. Go ahead. I think you had another thought, Jeremy.
So, no, when coaches are putting their game plan in for the week, creativity and imagination comes to mind, right? So you scout the other team and you try to find creative and imaginative ways to beat their front, right? To beat their offensive linemen when you're talking about defensive line and linebackers. And like I said, the versatility of this group, they can cover too. David Benda can cover. Jaylan Ford could cover. Demarvion Overshown's a converted linebacker. Don't really know for sure how much of a coverage guy Luke Brockermeyer is, but he found himself in the right place last year to pick off two passes. And so I'm Jaylan Ford is the key to this whole thing for me because, again, he was the third leading tackler with 53 tackles. He led the team in tackles for loss. He has the ability to cover. Everything you're hearing out of spring and fall camp is he's the guy to allow Demarvion to do these things. And then you got a guy like Tucker Dorsey, who comes in, who had over 100 tackles last year at the FCS level, and they're saying he's always in the right place. He's instinctive. He knows exactly where to be. He knows how to shed blockers and make tackles, which is the fundamental piece that the linebackers, because there's no coincidence that your three leading tacklers were from the linebacker position: Overshown, Brockermeyer, and Ford. Defensive line job is to keep the big heavies from putting hands on these guys to allow them to roam free and make stops. But I think the versatility of this group is what it's going to allow Demo to do that. And it's going to allow Pete Kwiatkowski, Jeff Choate, and that defensive staff, along with Gary Patterson, to come up with creative and imaginative ideas on how to beat Oklahoma, Iowa State, and those teams in conference.
So when you're talking about coverage skills, I'm actually looking at the coverage skills from Pro Football Focus, and each one of them, Jaylan Ford, David Benda, and Demarvion Overshown, all have over 60 grades according to PFF, which is in the green. So I don't want you to look at it. 60 is a bad thing, especially from the linebacker position. Jaylan Ford is damn near 70% in coverage last year. So the opportunity to be able to cover in space allows, again, if you're trying to run press man coverage and you got a tight end that's going to, move out, Jaylan Ford, and you got a nickel that's having to cover a slot receiver, and you want to minimize the amount of catches that a tight end has. So I think, go ahead, Jeremy. And
to let the audience know, I didn't know that Clint was going to pull those PFF numbers up. I don't have PFF up right now. I take, old school pen and paper notes. But the film tells you that. And the catapult scores that they hung up in the summer tell you that. He runs 22 point something miles per hour at peak speed. Demarvion Overshown runs 21 point something miles per hour at peak speed. This linebacker group is a very fast athletic group. Now we just got to put them in positions to use that athleticism to make plays on the football field. And like I said, I'm excited about this group. You bring an experience, again, and you already have an experienced group, but you bring in a guy like Diamonte Tucker Dorsey, who, has played very, very well. He's an FCS All-American into this room. People worry about, can he make that jump from FCS to Power 5, and the coaches are saying yes. His teammates are saying yes because of the skill set that he has and the football IQ that he has. But a guy who played limited in Jaylan Ford, and got a lot more playing time after Luke Brockermeyer left, is productive. And I think the sky's the limit for him, and he's going to continue to do that, have that upward trajectory in this 2022 football season.
Yeah, you're talking about experience. So I kind of want to go through these names and kind of where they've gone, because some of them have shifted to other positions. So Maurice Blackbell, who's a linebacker, has now moved to safety. Terrence Cooks went to the transfer portal. Luke Brockmeyer, you were just talking about him and how Jaylan Ford had to step up after his injury there. Probably not going to play this year. And if he does, probably get some limited snaps towards the end of the season with his knee injury. Adeyewale is now gone, transfer portal. And then, so really what you're bringing back is Devin Richardson, who probably has the least amount of snaps as all these experienced guys. He played in 7 games, 57 snaps. Demarvion Overshown played in 11 games, 530 snaps. Then you're talking about David Benda so they've all played in double-digit games and almost plus 200 snaps between David Benda, and then Jaylan Ford played in 12 games at 369 snaps. So yes, there is a lot of experience. You brought some experience in with Tucker Dorsey. It's how do you maneuver, really move these guys around. And like you talked about before, I think versatility allows you to bring in any 3 of these guys to be able to play the middle linebacker or the wheel linebacker role, because I think they are versatile to be able to do it. I don't think you have to stick Jaylan Ford specifically at middle linebacker. I don't think you have to play Tucker Dorsey specifically at wheel linebacker. I think they can move these gentlemen around with the same, like you were talking about speed a while ago, to play them where they need to be able to move Demarvion Overshown around the defense, depending on the scheme and how many down linemen you have, or do they replace the edge with Demarvion Overshown and put him on the edge? So I think it allows you, with this versatility you have, to be able to move these guys around.
And I just don't think it's us that has a thought that these guys are going to be much improved. You look at national, publications like Phil Steele has this linebacker room is the third best linebacker room in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma and Kansas State. I think you said 33rd in the country. So top, not in the top 25, but in that top third, fourth. There's 130 teams, 33 out of 130 teams is somewhere in that top quarter of linebacker rooms. You talk about individual accolades. You talk about Bednarik, Lombardi, Nagurski, Butkus for Demarvion Overshown, first team, all Big 12 by the same publication. And, I really feel like everybody hones in on him. But I would not be surprised, like I said, if 41 ends up being part of that all Big 12 list at the end of the season, whether it be second team, third team. I really believe he's going to show up and show out. And like I said, he has the ability to third leading tackler and his limited snaps, coverage skills. So I think he's going to pick off a few this year. Just couldn't be more excited about the kid from up north of Dallas. And David Gabin is an All-American. We had a chance to talk to him at Bernhorn's Heroes, and you called him the hardest hitting linebacker coming out of high school, which a lot of people did, an Under Armour All-American. But he can run, can cover, can tackle. So, like I said, I think this group is pretty deep. You're only going to have two on the field at the same time most times, unless Demarvion slides down. But I think this group has a good solid 4 or 5 that they can run out there and get the job done.
Do you think they work best? And you'll correct me on this here in a minute, because I think my free is different than your thought of free. But do you think these linebackers play better in the gap scheme, or do you think they play better if the defense is not taking on double teams and they're allowed to play? I'm not going to say more free, because they obviously have schemes that they got to stay within, right? They got jobs they have to do,
assignments.
But within their assignments, do you feel they're better linebackers to move in space, sideline to sideline, than moving north and south and having to fill gaps?
On occasion, I think they're all good sideline to sideline runners. Like I said, we talked about their speed and their ability to probably cover the width of the football field, and their ability to drop deep in coverage against running backs or tight ends if necessary. But Demarvion's highlights from the linebacker position, not as an edge, are on delayed blitzes. Let the defensive lineman, lock up with the offensive lineman and create a hole for me to sprint through. I think Ford has that ability too. Diamonte Dorsey probably has that same ability because of his instincts. Understands, hey, this is the coverage we're in. If it's press man, I got time, right? Because cornerbacks and nickels are going to be up in these wide receiver spaces. If we get the matchup we want, offensive line against defensive line, there's a chance for me to run free, especially if a back, spread comes out of the backfield, and that would have been his blocking assignment, but it's now not. So to answer your question, I think they can do all, and it's probably going to be based on play and alignment of the offense is going to dictate that. But I think they're capable to do both. I think they're capable to run delayed blitzes based upon the games that the defensive line plays. But I think if you see, sprint outs, like wide receiver screens, linebackers turn and run, right? So generally get 2 wide receivers side, 1 wide receiver's responsibility is to block while the other catches the ball and tries to make it upfield. But these linebackers are fast enough to get out there and make plays on these wide receivers on tunnel screens, wide receiver screens, or just straight sprint outs. And what I want is the defensive ends to set the edge, turn them back in, so that they can do their job and make tackles.
So let's talk.
I don't know
about
if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. But there's some positive and negatives to that. And the reason I say that is because their coverage skills are really, really good for linebackers, right? Their pass rushing skills are up there. They're above 60. When you're looking at the linebackers, most of them are above 60. Where the problem we had last year was their run defense. That was a problem. And most of them, believe it or not, fell under 40% or 40 grade for run defense on Pro Football Focus, as well as tackling was something that they did not do well. And I think when you're gap style linebacker, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, Jeremy, when you're a gap style linebacker, you're filling a hole. And if you overplay that hole, it's a missed tackle, 1, 2, and it degrades your rush defense as well. So that's what I'm saying. I think we played in a situation where last year the defensive front was taking on double teams to allow the linebackers to be able to fill those gaps with guys like Demarvion Overshown and Jaylan Ford that move at a high rate of speed. If you're not timing that gap correctly, there's almost to a point where you overrun that gap, and now you're letting those seams go, and now you got a 5 or 6, 7 yard, rush, which we seen last year, where your defensive backs like Anthony Cook from the nickel position are your best tacklers in space that are having to make those tackles, but it's 6, 7 yards down the field.
And I think it's a combination of both. I think freelancing and not maintaining gap integrity and not doing your job caused some of that. But I think just solid fundamental tackling, bringing guys down to the ground also was a problem for this group. So for all the great things we said, that's the reason why, is because I believe it's more the fundamental tackling piece and less of the gap integrity piece. But yeah, there's definitely times when guys would fire into the wrong hole, thinking they were going to make a play, and guy comes on the back end and is running down the sidelines. And like you said, it's the secondary's responsibility then to make the play. So yeah, I think it's a combination of both, and they have to be more disciplined. They have to understand what the play requires of them and do their job, not try to freelance outside the play and do someone else's job. And at the same time, if what they do allows them to get their hands on the ball carrier, whether it be a running back, receiver, tight end, whoever's got the ball, bring it down to the ground in whatever fashion necessary, minus the face mask.
Do you think? Yeah, absolutely, and the horse collar, which I watched DeAndre Coburn do on Spencer Sanders today, and gave him a free first down on 3rd and 9. Do you think second year PK system allows you or you think it allows them to think less, react more, which would cause them to freelance less, knowing this is second year in system, I don't have to think as much anymore. I can actually react versus be proactive versus reactive?
I think every player that's talked on the defensive side of the football, whether it be Anthony Cook, whether it be Demarvion during media days, whether it be Obi Agofu earlier this week on media availability, they all tout the second year in the system. But that's what they're going to say, that they feel more comfortable. Because if you practice in the same scheme and are asked to do the same things, eventually through repetition, that's what it's supposed to allow you to do, is feel more comfortable, to understand your assignments, and then to act those out on the practice field and then ultimately in the game. So I think that's true. But how does it come to fruition on Saturdays? What does that look like? What does that comfort level or that ability to play faster look like on Saturdays? And again, that's something that we really don't know, and why we have to do these position previews with the knowledge that we have from last year, the thought process of what may change when you bring in a guy like Diamonte Tucker Dorsey, when Jaylan Ford has an extra year of experience, when Demarvion has the ability to allow PK to be creative, but it all is going to tell starting September 3rd, and we really don't know, and that's why you can't be any more excited to see this as much as the offense. I feel like I know what the offense is. I feel like I know the offense is going to produce. I feel like I know that we just got to work out who's playing on the offensive line, and just about everything else is set. I feel like we know who the players are, beginning to know who the players are on the defensive side. But what does that mean on Saturdays? What does that mean starting September 3rd? Is the product going to be better than 99th? Is it going to be better than 5.2 yards per rush? Is it going to be better than a -4 turnover margin? Because that's what Steve Sarkisian said, is we got to turn the football over. And again, it's coordination between the defensive line, linebackers, and the secondary that make that happen.
Yeah, so we're talking about adjustments, and I know Steve Sarkisian brought this up this week, which we're doing this on Saturday morning, the 13th of August. But he brought it up in the fact that putting these guys in scenarios on the field during practice, replicating a 3rd and 4 at the 40-yard line, knowing that if you stop them at 3rd and 4 and it's 4th and 1, what is the quick adjustments you're going to have to make with teams moving really, really fast to call the next play to be able to adjust to that. And I know they've been working on that because adjustments is something that hindered us last year going into the third and fourth quarter, allowing teams to be able to take over football games. So I know he's putting these guys in positions so that they have to think less but just react to, okay, now it's 3rd and 6, good chance that this is what's going to happen. How do we adjust to that? To what the offense is going to call. But like you said just now, how it could go well in practice, but how is it going to go on game day on Saturday? Do you forget what you've learned, or do you continue to get better in this system and be able to make those decisions? Because again, it sounds like that Jaylan Ford is the one that's going to be making the calls for those, front 7 guys. Hey, this is how we need to align ourselves. Just like Anthony Cook sounds like he's the one, or Jaron Thompson is going to be making those calls in the secondary. So Jaylan Ford is going to have a lot on his plate this year and making those calls from the linebacker position to get the front 7 lined up correctly. But I think it comes back down to scenarios, going back to Williams, 4th and 1 in the Oklahoma game really turned that on its head when he took off and he ran it for a touchdown. You got to be able to react and blow that stuff off and come back and play as a defense, just like you did in the first, 2 quarters of that football game, barely giving Oklahoma anything outside of that, 60, 70-yard touchdown, whatever it was, to make it, closer than what it needed to be at the end of that half.
Yeah, I feel okay with Jaylan Ford calling the defense, on the front 7, and I feel really comfortable with Anthony Cook having that responsibility in the back end. But if Diamonte Dorsey doesn't give you the production on the playing field, which I think he will, I think he'll come in and play great. But if he doesn't, who better than to help Jaylan Ford understand defensive football from the middle linebacker position, understand tendencies and scheme and alignment to help him call the defense. Who better to be in the film room and on the practice field with, and a guy who's in his 5th year and been as productive as Diamonte Dorsey's been.
Yeah. Let me get a drink before we do the outro here. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I got a little, talk linebackers and edges, for the last 2 days, man, get you excited. Like you said, I'm more excited to see this defense. Offense, you kind of know what you're going to get. Defense was so terribly bad last year. There's you shouldn't see anything but upward trajectory from each one of these positions. So we appreciate you listening as always. Please hit that like button. Leave your comments, your thoughts in the comments box on the YouTube page. We definitely appreciate it. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you listening as always. You enjoy your weekend and have a wonderful Hook 'em day. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.